Welcome back to This Week in Film. It's the weekly podcast where we get together and talk about the movies we've seen over the past 7 days. I'm Nick Panunto, joined as always by Midwest Matt Lauer. Matt, how is it going?
It's going awesomely, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing just great. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to us all.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
I was visited by 3 ghosts last night, and they seem to have their calendar confused. Why didn't Charles Dickens make any Easter stories? He might have. I don't know his catalog.
There's no such thing as getting into the Easter spirit.
What's his one about the Christmas story called?
The Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol. Yeah. Why aren't there no Easter? Yeah. My son asked me today. He says. He got a harmonica from his grandma, and he's like, "Here, Daddy, play the harmonica. Play us an Easter carol." I was like, "That's not a thing. There's like, Here Comes Peter Cottontail."
I was gonna say, hippity hoppity Easter's on its way. That's all there is.
Yeah. Well, Matt, it's been a week since we last met. Have you seen any movies?
Yeah. So first I saw one movie. And then I saw a bunch more.
Oh, good.
Yeah, So here's what I'm going to be covering this week. Rosemary's Baby.
Oh.
Assassination Nation.
Oh.
Suspiria.
Oh, no way.
Bad Times at the El Royale.
Oh, you finally saw that.
Yeah. And The Nice Guys.
Oh, okay. I saw 2 movies.
Cool.
I saw The Chipmunk Adventure from 1987, and a documentary that came out not too long ago called Freesolo, which is about a guy who's going to climb this mountain in Yosemite National Park.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've heard about that.
Right. So why don't you start? Because you've got a lot on your plate.
No kidding. Some of these I'll go through a little more quickly than others because, tell you what, in fact, I will start with the one that I have the least to say about. And then you can decide whether you want to hear another before doing one of yours. Suspiria.
Okay, now before you start, did you watch the one from 2018 or the one from the 70s?
I watched the one from 2018.
Okay, I'm excited to hear what you have to say about this because, all right, just go ahead.
Okay, so I did not know anything about this movie before I saw it. And I didn't even realize that the girl from 50 Shades of Grey, who is the main character, was in it until later that night when I watched Bad Times at the El Royale. So I didn't know anything about it. And then I started watching it. And I was watching this with Karina and her roommate. And for a huge chunk of it, because we were watching this in a certain way that it was available to us for free. I won't get into more details than that, but I will say that we did not know whether or not there should be subtitles, because a lot of this movie's in German, some of it's in French, and the version that I saw did not have any subtitles for either one. Now,
you spent some time in Germany. Were you able to pick up the dialect?
Well, I spent some time in southern Germany, and they actually have a very strong dialect. So I had taken a couple years in high school, which wasn't the most intensive teaching. Like high school German's not like high school Spanish, where some people really pick it up. And I'm not good at picking up languages, so that's largely my fault too. So I didn't know it very well when I got there. And they had such a strong dialect. I think it was because I was in Bavaria, it would be like learning English and then coming to the southernest of states where there's this huge, crazy accent you're not expecting. So I struggled with it, but the people there would tell me I spoke it pretty well. And then I would ask them what they were saying.
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, you speak it well, but you don't understand it for crap." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." So, So anyway, there were a few things here and there where, like, while I was listening, I was like, I can kind of tell what's going on, but I couldn't like explain it to them. And I couldn't figure out what to make of the movie itself for like the first, I'm going to break this down in a real weird way, because usually you'd say like 2/3 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But this movie has 6 acts and an epilogue. So I'm going to say the first 5 acts. So for the first 5 acts, I didn't really know what to make of it. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'm not even going to say I saw this. I'm not going to bring it up on the podcast or anything. And especially because of the not having the subtitles. But then I saw the last 2 parts and I was like, oh, I know how I feel about this now. And I don't think the subtitles would have even made a difference. So the plot, if you're wondering, is a girl from, I think, Ohio, goes to Germany to go to a dance studio that's very, very esteemed and be taught by someone who's this extremely famous dancer. And then you discover that the dance place has some sort of mystical, paranormal kind of elements to it. And there's some violence to that. Things are happening to people involved, and some people are disappearing or some are possibly dying. You're not quite sure what's going on. The characters don't quite know what's going on. And then at the end, the movie just goes bug nuts, and you what the hell?
I've never heard that phrase.
Yeah, well, you'll know what it means when you see Suspiria, because it's ridiculous. And I imagine that there are some people out there who really appreciated or enjoyed this movie. I'm not one of them at all.
Right.
No,
Okay.
I did not enjoy this. And like I said, through most of it, I was like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything about this movie. But then I feel pretty all right saying I didn't like it.
Okay.
And I wouldn't recommend it. If you're really into pretentious stuff, like if you like seeing a movie like, I don't know, like Vanilla Sky or Stanley Kubrick stuff, and then, walking out of the weirdest ones and going like, yeah, I really like that. Like if you saw Eyes Wide Shut and you walked out going, oh, that was my kind of movie, go ahead and watch it. But if you're like the rest of us, fuck this movie. Don't bother.
All I know about this movie is there's a YouTube channel called Red Letter Media, and they did a review, like a long discussion about Suspiria from 1977, and another episode about the remake in 2018.
Yeah.
And the guys on the show are these, like, if you watch it, you get to know their names. It's like Jay and Josh, and Jay really loves like horror movies.
Is he the bigger guy?
So, no, he's the smaller guy with the beard. And so they gushed over Suspiria from 77. Like they say like most people won't like it, and it's like a total like nightmare of a movie trying to watch story wise, but it's like a visual movie. Like the story doesn't make any sense, but the visuals are what you're there for. Okay. And then they said kind of the same thing for the remake, where it's more of a visual experience.
Feast for the eyes.
Yes, like it's just something that you're supposed to watch, not so much understand. But I think they said they enjoyed the remake more than the original, but I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, that's all I know about those two movies is their review, and then watching their episodes about it, I went, I don't ever need to see this movie. And because they show kind of all the best parts from it, and I was like, I'm not putting, like, I think I'm looking at the IMDb for it now, and the one from the 70s is an hour and 30 minutes, and I'm like, that sounds doable, but the remake is over 2.5 hours long.
Oh yeah, it was long.
Yeah,
real long. And I mean, like, okay, as far as visual stuff goes, specifically, I could nail this for you, really. Mm-hmm. If you've seen The End of White Noise and you've seen any sort of weird orgy porn, you've seen the two parts of the movie that are probably the feast for the eyes parts.
Isn't there a sequence in the movie where the one girl is like dancing and there's a girl in another room being like bent to hell?
Yeah, that's the part that's like the end of White Noise.
Okay. Oh, you know what? You just saying that reminded me of how White Noise ends. Didn't we see that together?
We sure did.
Yeah. It ends with him getting crumpled up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That movie sucked.
Oh, yeah.
And I was real excited about that, too. I thought it was going to be great.
Yeah, I think we were both excited.
That's the movie we saw right after The Grudge.
Yeah, because we had seen The Grudge. And I don't, listeners, I don't know if we've already told you this story or not, but it's a short one, so be prepared to hear it again.
Yeah.
We went to see The Grudge, and we saw a preview for White Noise. Now, I'm going to tell this from my perspective because I'm me. I was looking at the screen, watching the preview, and I think Nick and I were sitting like kind of in the front of the main section, so like that first set of seats where you can put your feet up on the bar and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be looking towards the screen and then noticed a white figure to the right of the screen. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't actually even believe in ghosts, but I saw this thing and it freaked me out. And what freaked me out even more was because while I was looking at it going, holy shit, what's that? Nick noticed it and went, what's that?
Yeah.
And then I think we got so scared that we associated it with White Noise and had to go see it. And then we did. And it was terrible until the last 5 seconds.
I had forgotten all about White Noise. Now I need to watch the end of that movie just to see it again.
What was Michael Keaton thinking?
I think he was just hungry for work. Like he was
I
kind
think
of like
at the time he just needed to show that he could do something.
Yeah.
And maybe a horror movie is a good way to spread your wings a little.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about Suspiria?
No.
Okay. Do you want to do another one of your movies or shall I?
Tell you what, I actually think that I talked about The Nice Guys before on here. So I can make that pretty quick. I know you and I have definitely discussed it a couple times. Okay. So if anybody's really interested, I guess if there's a way to search the show notes, you can check that.
There is.
Cool. So The Nice Guys stars Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. And basically, Ryan Gosling is an alcoholic widower PI, and Russell Crowe is a muscle for hire. And they run across each other and end up kind of looking into a sort of crime mystery thing together. And it's a freaking fantastic movie. I realized today as I was watching it, because this is the second time, I was like, you know what? As I was describing it to Karina, I was like, it's kind of like LA Confidential, but if it were a comedy. And then I watched it. It's exactly LA Confidential made into a comedy.
Really?
100%. In fact, there are a couple beats that are very, very similar too. Like this one woman who's like, she's trying to say that her daughter's still alive and stuff, and her daughter's been murdered. And I was like, man, I think that might even be the same actress. If not, she's done up to look the same as the woman that's in LA Confidential who needs to like come in and ID her daughter's body. So there's just all these things that are very similar. And I don't want to say too much more about that because I feel like I'll spoil some things from LA Confidential. And you don't want to do that. Everybody go see LA Confidential, then watch The Nice Guys. Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling both do an amazing job in this movie individually, and they both have really great chemistry together. I swear, like if this movie comes out with a sequel, I'll be in the theater like the opening night because I love this movie so much. And I like it even more the second time because I realized that the first time around, I felt like the third act of the movie was a bit sloppy.
Yeah, I didn't care for the end.
Well, there's still a couple things about it that are a little like, it's not as bad as like, what's that movie? Baby Driver, where you're like, okay, this whole thing with John Hamm needs to just end.
Yeah.
But it's got a smidge of that. But once you've essentially, like I had already seen it before, I was able to follow everything and just like not need to keep as much track in my mind. And I was able to see that like actually everything hangs together really well. Really? So yeah. So I would say, if you haven't seen it a second time, check it out again. It's a ton of fun, like ton of fun. Like I said before, I don't really laugh out loud at movies a lot. This movie I laughed out loud at a bunch of times today, and I'm pretty sure I laughed out loud when I saw it on the plane, which is embarrassing because I was on a plane the first time I saw it. So super high recommend. Check it out.
Okay, I'll have to check it out again. It's a movie I'd like to watch again, but I really didn't like the end of it. And what you said gives me hope that it's maybe better than I remember.
I don't think it'll bug you as much. And I seem to recall the first time feeling like there was a really definitive point that it turned into the end where it was like, boom, we just started the third act. And this time around, it felt a little smoother too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. The Nice Guys. All right. So that brings me to the first movie that I saw this week, and it's called The Chipmunk Adventure from 1987. This movie stars Alvin and the Chipmunks and the Chipettes, who are the girl chipmunks who look just like regular girls, which is a weird.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
They don't look like chipmunks?
So, no. In fact, the chipmunks don't look like chipmunks. They look like children. They have chipmunk-ish features, but for the most part, they're just kids. And so that's a little weird.
Just like the illustration style, was that different back then?
Yeah. Yeah. And they look just like you remember. Like, I don't know if you watched Alvin and the Chipmunks or anything when we were kids, but
you know what? I'm struggling right now because I keep picturing Chippendale.
No, those are Rescue Rangers. They're different.
Yeah.
And so this is a movie that I had seen countless times growing up. It's the basic plot of the movie is Alvin, Simon, and Theodore make a bet basically to race around the world against the Chimpettes, who are Brittany, Jeanette, and the other one. And so they have to race around the world, and they get basically conned into it by these Euro trash Germans, Klaus and Claudia, and they are smuggling diamonds out of the country, basically. So the chipmunks have to go to these different stops around the world and drop off these dolls that are filled with diamonds, and then they pick up an answer doll that's filled with the cash that they're supposed to bring back to Klaus and Claudia, who spend most of the movie smoking, which is hilarious because you're never going to see smoking in a cartoon again. And the movie is pretty good. Like, it's not great. I don't want to watch it again. Like, my kids were kind of into it, but it floods back the nostalgia like crazy. Like, I remembered every song. There's one song that they sing together, like with the Chipettes, where they're the boys of rock and roll and they're the girls of rock and roll. And I remember that being my favorite song of the movie. And I was like, I love this song. And my son's like, you've seen this before? I'm like, hell yeah, I've seen this before, except I didn't say hell yeah. And
fuck yeah, motherfucker.
And I'm like, I know every word to this song. You better believe it. Anyway. And so the plot is stupid, and the conceit is stupid. And it's really just like an animated or a feature-length version of the TV show. But the thing that really stood out to me was,
I'm sorry. Is there a moment in this movie where they are like strapped to giant logs?
There is.
Over a fire?
And they're singing Wooly Bully.
Well, I looked up images because you said they look like people. And the Chipettes, which, by the way, you keep saying Chimpettes, which is kind of funny.
It's hard. It's hard to not say it.
The Chipettes, 100%. They totally look like just normal people cartoons. They have pink noses, but otherwise they just look like humans.
Yeah.
The chipmunks, the males, look more like creatures because their hair is the same color as their skin.
Uh-huh.
But like looking at the image that I'm seeing, and by the way, it's really annoying that Google changed so that you can't have a full screen image. That's crap.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you've noticed that on your phone, but if you look up an image now, it's like you can't make it like full screen.
Oh.
So anyway, but right now I'm glad I can't because I'm seeing these guys naked pretty much tied to these poles. And in this particular image, they do look like young boys. So that's really disturbing. And I think I'm going to go vomit. But please continue your story.
That scene is great too because there's just casual racism. Because the Indian tribe or South American tribe that captures them, Alvin keeps asking them that he'll trade them great wampum for their Alvin and the Chipmunks t-shirts, because I guess in this universe, Alvin and the Chipmunks are a thing. Like they're pop stars.
Uh-huh.
Which is why they sing songs throughout the movie. But like Alvin's like, we're famous, but like no one seems to know who they are. So it's strange. Also, they live with Dave, the guy who yells Alvin, and Dave is in Europe on some business trip for the whole movie, and he keeps referring to them as his sons, which is weird.
Well,
because,
yeah, I mean, it's also weird that he's got chipmunks that should be the size of his like finger, but
right.
They're like almost up to his chest.
Well, they're like knee high, and but he like refers to them as his sons. Like later, towards the end of the movie, they all run into each other, and he's like, "Those are my sons." And then Alvin gets in trouble, which is, oh, Alvin, will you never learn? And it's a fun movie. My son really enjoyed it. My daughter watched the whole thing. The twins like disappeared halfway through it, not from this plane, but they just stopped watching the movie.
Oh.
And so, yeah, if you've got kids and you want to take a trip back in time, check out the Chipmunk Adventure. It's totally worth it. I'd say it's worth every second of it.
Well, Nick, I just sent you an image that I found online here of the chipmunks.
I just got a text message.
There you go.
Let's see.
And I want you to notice a couple things. Now, viewers or listeners at home, if you want to see this image, look up Alvin and the Chunk. What? Jesus Christ. Alvin and the Chipmunk. Alvin and the Chipmunks History - Business Insider. And you'll see a very old picture of Alvin and the Chipmunks, in which Simon is like up to Dave's chest.
Yeah.
Theodore is like a little bit smaller than him. And then Alvin is like half the size of the other chipmunks. It's just weird.
This must be a picture from like the 60s song where they sing the Christmas stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's got that.
One still wants a hula hoop.
Yeah. And that's the one thing about this movie that's kind of annoying. For about the first 45 minutes, or maybe a half hour, there are no songs. Like, they don't really sing anything. And then as the movie goes on, they must have realized, hey, we don't have any songs. Let's just keep cramming more songs into this because the movie's going to have a chipmunk soundtrack that people will want to buy. So there's just like these forced songs, and they're all sung by the chipmunks. And it gets a little old.
You know, I'm sorry, because I'm still swiping through pictures here. And I got to ask, like,
please,
are the female chipmunks... the chipettes, are they, because all these pictures I'm seeing are like upskirt shots of these girls. Are they like sexualized in it?
That's a very interesting point. I don't want to say yes, I will say that. Yeah. Like the main girl, like the female Alvin, Brittany, like she's supposed to be the hot one. And she's like wearing, like at one point in this movie, the female chipmunks go to like a resort, like a beach resort or something. And she's the only one wearing like a 2-piece bikini, and the other two are wearing like bathing suits for children. And she's the one that gets into like peril and stuff. So like, yeah, she's totally sexualized, and it's a little uncomfortable because she's supposed to be, they're all supposed to be children. And, that's weird.
Yeah.
And, I just got another text message.
You sure did.
Oh yeah, this is when they're singing the Girls of Rock and Roll song, where they're below them and they're like gyrating, and yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, a little inappropriate.
Yeah, it's a little inappropriate and a little in poor taste, I guess. But you know what? I don't care. Maybe I was really into the Brittany Chipmunk when I was a kid. Who knows? I don't. And my sister's name is Jeanette, which we always all thought was fun because one of the Chimpettes' names is Jeanette. So that's fun. And then there's the other one, the third one, who's like supposed to be the fat one, and she's not fat at all. Like I just got another text message, which did. Oh, is this what they look like in modern times?
I have no idea. I am just flipping through pictures here, and
this looks like how they looked in that movie.
Stuff.
Yeah. So like so like they're supposed to be equal to the boys. Like they have the cool one, which is Alvin or Brittany, and then there's the smart one, which is Jeanette or Simon.
We'll just call her Glasses.
Yeah, and then there's the third one, who's like the fat one, which is, what was that?
The chair.
And it sounded like a horn. And then there's like the third one who's supposed to be the fat one, and that's Theodore. And then the third chipmunk girl is also supposed to be the fat one, but like she's not really fat, like at all, and neither is the boy one, which makes you go back and think about, oh, in 1987 this is what fat was considered, whereas today if they were going to have a fat character, it would be like a huge guy or a huge kid. So I thought that was interesting, like a social commentary kind of thing where we as a people have gotten larger. Fun talk.
But okay.
Like if you were to like, yeah, you'll see what I mean if you look at this kid, like, and he's supposed to be the fat one. Like the whole movie, he's just trying to eat.
I think that my hesitation here is that I think you're correct when it comes to cartoons. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to actual human beings, someone could be absolutely within a normal weight range and be considered fat or labeled as like the fat one.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and I would just say like think of people like Kelly Clarkson or Adele. Mm-hmm. You know, and people are like, "Oh, they're fat," and I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?"
They're just not skinny,
right?
Right.
All right. Wow. Who knew that there was so much to be had in Alvin and the Chipmunks?
Yeah, it sure is.
Hey, what's that Zack Snyder movie that everyone? Oh, Sucker Punch.
Oh yeah. Have you ever seen that?
No, God, no. But I feel like the one that you were talking about as being the chubby chipmunk, she looks like she would grow up to be in Sucker Punch.
Oh, that's sad. Because aren't those girls like sex slaves or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that what that movie's about?
Isn't that what this chipmunk movie's about? Based on that image of them strapped to poles. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, have you seen like all the new Alvin and the Chipmunk movies? Like the live action ones?
I watched the first one and I liked it. I was like, okay. This movie's cute. And then I started the second one and I went, nope, no thank you. No thank you.
Yeah.
So we haven't had to sit through those yet because I'm sure my kids are going to want to watch those. But the first one was totally fine. I don't think it warranted 4 sequels or how many there are now, but money is to be made, I guess.
I think the secret with that is to just keep putting it off until they're old enough to have taste.
Right.
And then let them see the first one and be like, no, I'm not going to bother with it.
Right. All right. So now you saw several other movies.
I did.
Let's hear of them.
Yeah, and like I said, I saw like one movie and then a bunch, and it was like I was sick, and then Karina was sick, and so there's been a lot of like, I guess, taking advantage of being sick to watch movies. But anyway, Rosemary's Baby. Now,
Had you seen this before?
I had seen it before, and I did not care for it. I'd seen it, good God, probably like somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago now. Yeah, sounds about right. And
that's probably when I saw it too. It was probably like 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah, it's probably around the time that like you were working at Blockbuster, like before I was.
Did we watch it together?
I don't think so, but it's possible that we did. I remember seeing it back in the day and going like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch a movie about a demonic baby," and I think I was looking for The Omen, but what I got was Rosemary's Baby,
right?
And so I didn't care for it very much. This time around, I actually really enjoyed this movie. It was slow at some points, which is fine. The acting is not good. There's some like real poor like timing and sort of rushed delivery. Some of it's sort of on purpose, but it came off as like, again, like stage acting, like too forced. Yeah. But well, tell you what, let me tell the listeners what this movie's about.
Sure.
So, a woman by the name of Rosemary gets pregnant, as you might expect. And she's dating this like actor husband. And somehow, even though he isn't getting like huge parts, they have this ginormous apartment in New York. Like ginormous. The fact that they have this apartment.
It was the 70s.
I don't care. Like
everyone had huge apartments back then.
I mean, super huge. So huge that you can never see the ceiling in any apartment.
15-foot ceilings.
Yeah. So they have this huge apartment and he's trying to get gigs or whatever. She gets pregnant, or they get pregnant, whatever. And there's some pretty weird stuff that goes on even in that, where like she gets pregnant through some pretty seedy circumstances. And they've got these neighbors who are like these old weird people who are real nosy and like all up in her business and like always checking on her and saying like, "Oh, you got to go to this doctor." So she starts seeing this doctor recommended by them, and there's a lot of pressure involved. And this time around, I really saw this movie because I wasn't looking for a demonic baby, more as Rosemary's experience, because that's what the movie really is. You're in her shoes. Have you ever read the essay or the short story, The Yellow Wallpaper?
I don't know. It sounds kind of familiar. It sounds like something you recommended.
It's something that you would probably read in a lot of like English courses, or if you were to read, or if you were to have like a women's studies course that involved any sort of like fictional literature. Because it's all about this woman who's, it's all about her, like her being viewed as being hysterical, but basically she's just like a person who's being treated like property by her husband, who's a psychologist, and he's really gaslighting her and like doing all this stuff to make her think that whatever her complaints and problems are, it's all her, it's just her not being happy and like, "Oh, you're depressed." And it's like, well, yeah, she's depressed because her life sucks, not because there's anything wrong with her. And so this, I read a lot more from that sort of perspective watching it. And if you watch this movie as an allegory to how women are being treated, and I'm sure that's a lot of what it's supposed to be about, then all this nefariousness and gaslighting and stuff really makes for a really good movie. You just need to know that you're not going to get some sort of baby with hooves, right halfway through the movie.
Yeah, you never get to see the baby, right?
No.
Or is there like just like a quick shot of its face or something?
I thought that for a moment. I was like, wait a minute, maybe you get some sort of shot of its eyes and they're glowing red or something. But nope.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
No. Oh,
No.
really? Okay. Because I can remember the same thing.
Yeah. That must be from a different movie.
Yeah. Okay.
There is a moment where there's like a lot of, like it is when she's getting impregnated. There's all this sort of a montage of crazy imagery. And there is some like goat man kind of thing that you don't really actually see that well there. So I think maybe our minds have taken some of that imagery and just put it into the crib that you see at the end, but you don't actually see into the crib.
So like I'm trying to remember, there's like a part where the guy says, she's like, what's wrong with his eyes? And a guy yells, he has his father's eyes.
Right.
They don't cut to a shot of like a hairy, like a black face with red eyes at all.
I don't think so.
Oh, it's so weird.
Unless I blinked.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. This movie has a whack ass soundtrack. Like there's some weird stuff going on the soundtrack. But other than that, I mean, this is a pretty solid recommend on my part.
Yeah.
And if you are seeing it with someone, it's one of those movies that's really great because it's pretty good storytelling. It's really good. Like you can feel the time that it was in, so you don't have to keep reminding yourself like this is good for its time. It's got a ton of things that you've probably heard referenced in other places. Like if you've ever heard anyone be like, "Hail Satan, hail Satan," like that's from this. But it's also really good material for just kind of laughing at too. Like not because it's bad, but just because the things that are old and the giant apartment where you're like, what the hell? This is ridiculous. Like you can get some pretty good laughs out of it too. So I'd say check it out and watch it with a friend.
Yeah. The one time I watched it, I remember, I'm trying to remember and it's been years, but the who's the main actress? What's her name? Woody Allen's
Mia Farrow.
Mia Farrow. Thank you. Like the whole movie's basically, it's supposed to be about her, but she's in zero control of anything in her life.
Right.
And the whole movie's about her trying to gain some kind of control and it's just never happens for her.
Right.
And, I liked it, but like I said, or I agree with you. Like I thought it was going to be a different movie. And so when I guess spoiler alert, when Rosemary's baby shows up, since we already talked about it, I was like, oh, okay, now this is where the movie takes a dark turn, and then the movie's just over.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what's the rest of the story? So I think going back to watch it again, knowing what the movie's actually about, might elicit a different response.
I think it would. I think it definitely did for me.
No, that's cool. That's cool that you're able to go back and appreciate something that you didn't care for the first time, at least. Yeah,
I wasn't too stoked about it, but like Karina's trying to catch up on some movies that she's never seen that are classics and stuff. And I was like, well, I'm willing to see that one again. Let's give it a try. And definitely knowing that I wasn't going to get The Omen, which to me is probably, aside from The Descent, The Omen's probably like, it's definitely in my top 3 of like favorite horror movies.
I've never seen it.
I really like that movie a lot. And it's, like there was a Halloween a couple of years back that my friends Joanna and Heather Treat and I all sat down and watched The Exorcist and then The Omen together.
Is that the Heather who's the expert on everything on our show?
Yes.
Okay.
Resident expert Heather Treat. And we watched The Exorcist and I was just like, all right, yeah, that's fine. And then we got to The Omen. I'm like, yeah, here's the good stuff.
I love The Exorcist. I think The Exorcist is so good.
I'd bet that you wouldn't find The Omen. If you find The Exorcist scary, you probably won't find The Omen as scary. But it's definitely enjoyable.
Yeah, the first time I saw The Exorcist, I was a freshman in college, and me and my roommate, it was like 2:00 in the afternoon, and it was on the campus movie channel. And it's like 2:00 in the afternoon, and me and this guy just like with the sun blaring bright in the room are scared shitless watching this movie. It was such a great experience. It was so cool. And then I was working on a video edition of the podcast a few years ago, and I don't remember why The Exorcist comes up, but I wanted to put in the clip of Linda Blair puking into the one priest's face.
Yeah.
So like I had to kind of sit through the movie to find that specific shot. And I'm like watching the movie, but it's like dark in the room I'm in. It's the middle of the night, and I've got headphones on, and I'm just like into the movie because the movie really sucks you in. And I get to the part that I want, and I hit stop on the player, and it's just so quiet. We're in because I have the headphones on, and it's the middle of the night, and I'm like, oh God, I am uncomfortable. I got up and had to turn the light on because I was so uncomfortable. And then I never quite settled down. I did that thing where you like when you leave the room and the hallway is dark, you do the quick walk where you're like, everything's fine. I'm an adult. So yeah, that movie still will get me.
I see. I never. I don't hate The Exorcist. It just never scared me.
Yeah.
If you're looking for something that would possibly creep you out.
Uh-huh.
And it's also just a really good movie. The Orphanage. If you've never seen that, check out The Orphanage.
I've never seen that.
I think it's produced by Guillermo del Toro. He's connected to it in some way, but he didn't direct it, and it doesn't have that sort of Guillermo del Toro problem where there's no story.
Okay.
It is in Spanish, but it's really good. Yeah. So. All right, so I got two movies
directed
left.
by J.A. Bayona, who has directed something. He's the guy that did Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Ugh. Well, The Orphanage is way better than that. So, do you want me to do another one, or do you want to?
I would love for you to do another one.
All right, let's see here. I guess I'll do Assassination Nation.
Okay.
Are you familiar at all with this?
I am. I don't think I've ever even heard of it.
You have once, because I had seen a preview for it a long time ago and said, hey, there's some movie coming out that looks like The Purge, but it's not.
Oh, wait, is this the one with John Goodman?
No, that's something that's coming out now.
Oh.
This came out in the theaters last year and is on, oh God, what did I watch it on? I think I want to say Amazon Prime. No, it was Hulu. I think it was Hulu. Okay. So I had kind of forgotten about this. When I told you about it, I said, hey, I saw this preview for the thing. It looked kind of like The Purge, but it looked kind of interesting. Something about it seemed vaguely like I might want to see it. Never got around to it. I don't think really anybody did. But I heard on One Good Thing, that podcast that I was telling you about before.
Yeah.
I heard them talking about The Purge, and they had said, hey, if you're looking for something, because they weren't too big on The Purge, they're like, if you're looking for something that's kind of like The Purge, but that I would recommend, check out Assassination Nation. They talked about it a little bit, and I was like, oh, hey, that's that movie. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
So this movie is the plot of it. You get to meet 4 young ladies. And one of them is actually transgender, but I mean 4 young ladies, and they are
the actress is, or the character is?
The character is.
Okay.
And so and I don't think they say that right away. I think it kind of pops up once you've been wondering a little bit, but I might have missed something.
And she's transgendered in the sense that she's a boy dressed as being a girl, or a girl being a guy?
Biologically male.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And so the 4 of these people, though, they're kind of like catty and gossipy and stuff. And I mean, for the first bunch of the movie, they just kind of seem like assholes, just like Mean Girls, you know?
Uh-huh.
But see, this is where this movie is kind of interesting, because it does a lot of stuff where you're like, ugh, I don't really like these people. And I think you might enjoy it because you take interest in movies purposely making you uncomfortable to make you think. And that's definitely built into this. Like, if you weren't paying attention at all, you could probably watch this movie and just hate it and then hate all the people and be like, why did I just watch that? Spoiler alert, I actually really enjoyed this movie.
Really?
And I think that it's a lot smarter than... I don't want to say it's smarter than it thinks it is. It's smarter than you would think it is watching it if you weren't watching it with any intent. Because it could, like, probably whoever did go to the theater to see it was just looking for a Purge movie. And
like a generic horror movie kind of thing.
Yeah, just like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch a bunch of people do a bunch of terrible stuff to each other. Yeah. And that's what this movie's about. It's a meta commentary. So like, even when the movie first starts out, it's like, hey, trigger warning. This movie includes all this stuff, and it shows each thing that it's going to show, like, as it's warning you that it's in there.
That's pretty funny.
It's interesting. And it is kind of funny. And then once the movie starts, it's like, okay, you've got these 4 girls that are your kind of window into this world. And it's just a regular town, but it's a regular town where tons of people's phones and computers get hacked. And everything gets kind of leaked out onto the internet, like some sort of like malicious fappening kind of thing. Where it's like, we're going to put everybody's stuff out there and also their names and explanations of who they are and what's going on. And so it's like, there's the first person who this happens to is like the superintendent of the school. No. It's like the mayor of the city. And then there's like a superintendent of the school. And then it leaks down to like girls in the group and their friends and stuff. And so it goes from this being like, oh, wow, that was interesting. Can you believe that this came out about that guy? Oh, God, you know? And like some people being like, well, maybe that's not really our business to get into it. And, you know, they're kind of having a conversation and then it all starts hitting the people that you've met in the movie. And as they go through what they're going through, you're like, oh, okay, I'm on their side. You know, like they may have been annoying for the first 20 minutes of this movie, but this is fucked up stuff. And I am totally with them. And the world starts breaking down into chaos, and people in the movie are like trying to sort of organize against people. And it takes a while. This movie really, really, for all of its, if you were to watch the preview, it shows a lot of like the violence and stuff. But the movie really takes its time to escalate. It slowly escalates and it slowly turns into a horror action movie. And is only that for maybe like 15 or 20 minutes of the movie. So I hope I haven't spoiled much. I don't know that there are a lot of twists or anything really to spoil, but I totally recommend this movie if you are interested in watching something that has some social commentary, you know, make you think, kind of meta, just taking some of the stuff that happens in real life and dramifying it to like go, hey, let's sort of have a conversation in the movie with this. So, and it kind of, it's kind of like a movie letter, like a letter to, do you know what an incel is?
I've heard the term, but I don't get, and I don't care to look into it. I know it's a right wing.
Yeah, it's involuntary celibates. So basically, men who can't get laid.
Oh, okay.
And so this is like a letter to them, and to like basically, I mean, like they're sort of like the worst of the worst in this, but it's like basically, here's some commentary towards them and any other sexists or shitty men or people who have some sort of insecurity and use their power and control as a way to like make themselves feel better by taking other people down. And it's pretty cool. I give these people props. And it definitely has like a low budget, pretty indie feel. And it at the same time, like, oh, they made like a legit movie with pretty low budget here.
Okay. All right, cool.
Yeah.
It sounds interesting. Now I'm interested in seeing it. That's cool. And it's called Assassination Nation.
Correct.
I'm going to add it to my movies I want to watch list. I'll do it later. And so the second movie that I saw this week was called FreeSolo, and it's from 2018. It's a documentary about directed by Jimmy Chin and Elizabeth Vasarhelyi. And it's a documentary about this mountain climber named Alex Honnold. And it's his story of him becoming the first person to climb El Capitan, which is like this. It looks just like the wall from Game of Thrones.
Oh, geez.
If it was the wall, if the wall from Game of Thrones existed in the middle of Yosemite National Park and was made of stone instead of ice, and he was going to be the first person to climb it without any ropes. So he's going to, like, that's what free solo means, is he's doing it alone, and which is the solo, and then the free is without any ropes.
Okay.
And it's very dangerous. It's very treacherous. And I learned an awful lot about mountain climbing, or the documentary sets out to explain, like, here's what it's like to be a mountain climber, or like a professional mountain climber, and all the stuff that comes with it. And I feel like if I was more into climbing, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, my interest in climbing is a 1.
Yeah.
And so if I was more into climbing, maybe I would appreciate it even more on a greater level. But this documentary was excellent. It had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Both my wife and I were like, oh my God, this is insane that this guy's doing this. And what I learned is, one, I'm more afraid of heights than I am proud to admit. Uh-huh. And like I say that I have problems climbing ladders. Like, to get on the roof of my house is like a real embarrassing journey. If you ever have the chance to see it, it's awful, because I have no confidence in my knees, and the making the transfer from the ladder to the roof is, like, thinking about it gives me anxiety, and because I'm afraid my knee's going to give out and I'm going to fall. But once I'm on the roof, I'm like, look at me, I'm on a roof, and I'll like run around, do all kinds of stuff. But it's being on the ladder that makes me uncomfortable. And there's a moment in this movie where they're showing people that, like, it takes them so long to climb the mountain that they camp on the side, on the face of the mountain. Yeah. Like, they have these tents that can connect to the mountain, and you just sleep in it, like hanging there. Ugh. And I'm like, oh my God, like, the thought of doing that is just so insane. And like, how can anyone do that? And then you start wondering, is this guy has like a lot of emotional problems. Like, his dad died when he was younger, and his mom tells a story where they're like, his dad was like a pretty good dude, but if he was alive today, they would probably diagnose him with Asperger's or some form of Asperger's. Okay. And so, like, his family and his family life, everyone seems kind of emotionally stunted. The guy says that growing up, his mother never said I love you to them. But she would in French. Like, I guess his mom was a French teacher, and she would only speak French to them, I guess, in order to immerse them in French to get them to learn it. So she would say, I love you in French, but she would never say it in English. And he takes the time to tell that. So it, like, must mean a lot to him that never happened. Mm-hmm. And he has a girlfriend, and ever since he got the girlfriend, he's been having problems. Like, he tries to climb with her, she tries to join him on his adventures, and with ropes, and like he falls twice and he never falls. Like he falls and like hurts his back. He falls another time and like almost breaks his ankle. And there's this documentary crew that is following him around because he says that this is what he's going to do. He's going to scale El Capitan, and they want to be there when he does it. So they're just kind of following him everywhere. Mm-hmm. And the whole documentary rests on him being able to make the decision to finally climb this mountain. And I don't think it's spoiling too much, but there's one point where he goes to climb the mountain and he gives up on it because he had twisted his ankle so bad like a few weeks before, and he was feeling this pressure to do the climb. And he's like on the side of the mountain and he just gives up. And he's like, I can't do this. He's like, I can't do it. And you're like, well, good decision, guy.
Yeah.
Like great decision. Get off of the damn mountain. But it's just so harrowing. And I know nothing about climbing. Like the idea, like, do you understand anything about climbing?
No, not really.
Like, how do the ropes even work? Like, I know they have carabiners and like they run the ropes through the carabiners, but like, what are the ropes tied to? And why do you, what do you trust when you're up there? Like, are you just trusting the other person you're with? And the carabiners are like attached to the mountain, like they're like drilled in, but who drilled them in? Are you going to trust your life to some guy who drilled in a carabiner on the side of a mountain? So like the lifestyle of being a climber is just like ultimate trust in the people who are into your hobby. And like, I mean, just the sheer amount of dedication that this guy has to it. Like he does, like the amount of exercise this guy does in order to be able to hang from his literal fingertips 3,000 feet above the ground with no rope attached to him is unbelievable. And it was great. It was a wonderful documentary. And in all honesty, the best part of the movie is like the last 15 minutes, which is him doing the climb. And right before he does the climb, a friend of his dies climbing a mountain. Ugh. Like a guy just falls. And it happens. There's like a little montage in it of him talking about all these people he knows that have fallen to their deaths because they're all trying to climb these mountains without ropes, and literally one bad foothold or handhold and down you go, and it's a long way down. And it's a harrowing journey. It's thrilling, and you feel like you learn something. And I kind of, like, as much as I respect the guy for doing it, I kind of hate him at the same time. Like the main guy, you're just kind of like, you're really selfish. Like you're unbelievably selfish. And I think he knows that, and I don't think he cares. Mm-hmm. Like he's kind of like, cause there's certain points where they're talking about his friend that died, and he's like, yeah, well, or he's talking about the friend that died, and his girlfriend is like, well, imagine how his wife must feel. And he's like, yeah, well, what did she expect? Like, right. Which is very cold, but to him, it's like, yeah, he's a mountain climber. He could fall at any moment, at any time. And that's how he sees himself too, is that I could just fall at any moment at any time. And he doesn't seem to, either he doesn't value himself enough to realize what his loss would mean to other people, or he just really doesn't care what happens to him after he dies. Like he doesn't seem to care. Like if he dies, he doesn't seem to care how it would affect his mom or that it would affect his girlfriend. Cause he says, at one point he says, yeah, if I died, she'd probably be upset for a while, but then she'd move on. And while that may be true, like it's a very selfish way of thinking about the way other people's emotions are interacting with you or are entwined in your actions. So.
Well, or, I mean, I guess this wouldn't be a choice thing for his family, but in terms of like his girlfriend, like if he wants to do that and go like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and do my thing. I'm going to go ahead and climb these walls and whatnot. So just deal with it. Mm-hmm. fair enough. But, like I hope that would mean that he, like, if she were to go like, well, then I'm not going to be with you because I don't want to do that. That he'd be like, oh, fair enough. Okay, you don't have to be with me and put up with this, this whole risk thing. If I'm going to go ahead and do it, I'm only going to date people or make friends with people or whatever who would be okay with him dying.
Yeah. And they do go into that a little bit where like his presence or personality is kind of alienating, which is kind of what he wants. Like, I don't think he wants people to be attached to him in case he falls. So like, while at the same time, he doesn't care what happens to him if he falls, he does try to alienate people, but people are drawn to him because he's one, a rock climbing celebrity, but he has like these people, like this whole group of people that he's always with, like the camera crew that's with him. They've covered a few of his other climbs, and the director of the movie, like the documentary crew is a large part of the documentary. And at one point they're talking, there's one guy talking to the director of the documentary, and they're talking to him about, well, what happens if he falls? And he's like, well, that's a guy that I spend every day with for the last 8 years. Like, he's like, it'll be devastating, but like, we have to cover it. It's a National Geographic documentary. So like, I guess they produced it, but like this guy and the crew of people that he has working on it, it's amazing what these guys do to get these shots. Like, they're literally hanging off, like, while the one dude is climbing the mountain without any ropes, you've got a guy holding a camera dangling
basically
off the
doing
side
the same thing, right?
Yeah, like the documentary crew is climbing along with him, but trying to stay out of his way and out of his like line of sight because they don't want to distract him because
could kill him.
He could fall. Yeah, exactly. And so like he's putting all these people through, I don't want to say emotional trauma, because if he wasn't doing it, they wouldn't be there at all. They wouldn't be a part of his life at all. So it's like a strange, like, I don't want to say dichotomy because that doesn't feel correct, but,
dilemma.
Like conflict. Yeah, I guess dilemma. Yeah. It's like an inherent conflict of like, you're my friend and I spend all my time with you. And he says, the main guy says, if you guys weren't here, I probably would have done it already. And they're like, yeah, we know you would have.
Right.
Because he feels this pressure to perform for the cameras. And he's very honest about it. Like the documentary is very honest, and it's not very, it doesn't
It's not like filtered or censored.
Yes.
It's pretty genuine.
It's very genuine. Thank you. That's the perfect word. It's very honest and genuine, and very well done. I would highly recommend checking it out. And I
actually feel more interested in it now that you've talked about that dilemma and stuff than even about the rock climbing. Because I feel like, like that's kind of an interesting thing when there's someone, whose personal values and interests or something, like they have some sort of calling and they're like, I have to do this thing. And you like love them for that thing that passion and zeal and whatnot that they have. And it's also inherently the thing that makes it like difficult to connect to them.
Yeah.
It's a kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah. Like the main guy, excuse me, the main guy and his girlfriend, like the documentary goes on for so long that they end up like buying a house together. Mm-hmm. And so like the girl becomes more and more of a larger presence in her life. And then when he finally goes to do the climb, they have this awkward hug goodbye. And she's like, I'm not going to be here when you do it, because she doesn't want to distract him or anything. Mm-hmm. So he kind of gives her this time frame of when he's going to do it. Cause I guess weather conditions have to be perfect also. So he just kind of they just kind of do this early morning awkward hug goodbye. And then a camera guy is with her as she drives away. Mm-hmm. And like while she's driving, you can see her emotionally breaking down. And then eventually she pulls over and she's talking to the camera and she's like, I can't believe that could be like the last time I see him, or like that's the last time I see him is some awkward hug. And I think inside she knows that the hug probably didn't mean all that much to him. Even though he does care for her deeply, it's kind of like if she were to leave him because of this, he would probably get over it faster than she would.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, he's an interesting guy, and you kind of love him and hate him at the same time.
Have you ever seen or listened to the episode of Radio Lab? I think it was an episode called Limits, where the people go on some sort of extremely challenging bike ride. I think it's like a bike ride across the United States or something. Like, it's really, really long. It's a race. And do you know at all what I'm talking about?
I don't know. This is not familiar.
Because there's some pretty interesting stuff in there, and it involves them going at it so much that like they literally duct tape their heads to their back. Like, they make a harness out of duct tape that'll hold their head up because they can't hold their head up anymore while they're riding the bike because they've been holding their head up for so long. And like, they'll start to have hallucinations and delusions. And one guy thinks that he's being chased by some team of Arabian assassins. And like, the people that are the crew that are with him, like his friends who are driving beside him in a car or something, are like, yeah, you're right. Keep going. They're going to get you, like to like help him keep going. And there's one guy that I feel like you would like because he quits. He's like I think he quits like twice. Like, someone talks him back into it, and then he's like, no, and one of his friends dies, gets hit by a car or something. And he's like, you know what? No, what do I care if I win this race or not? If I die, how is a race worth it? So I would recommend that. It's, I haven't listened to Radio Lab for a long time, so I'm sure it's like many seasons back. But if you can find that episode, I'm almost 100% sure it's called Limits.
Okay.
Check it out. It'd be a nice follow-up to that documentary.
So like this whole thing is it's interesting because speaking of limits, like trying to see what the human body is capable of is, like pushing the boundaries. So like before this guy tried to climb this mountain, no one had ever done it before.
Right.
And so like people are, and the movie like addresses that, and they're like, well, once someone does this, what's the next thing that no one's done before?
Or what's he got to climb next?
Yeah. And like, that's always very people get wrapped up in the sensationalism of it. Like what's next? What's the next big thing? And the next thing is always something more dangerous. And there's a reason that no one has done it before. And there's going to come a point where there's just no way that you can do it. And people will die by the dozens trying to do it in order to be the first person to do it. And I bet like no one knows what that is yet. Like no one, like there are people who are going to die trying to accomplish something that doesn't exist yet. It's like those, like, you ever see those videos from Russia, like teenagers in Russia that climb freestanding buildings or like buildings under construction and just climb to the top?
I think I've seen clips of those within, different videos with lists of different clips of dangerous things.
Yeah. And it's things like that where you're like the act of thrill seeking and also the act of now you're watching my video of me doing it. And I'm just as guilty as anyone else of man, look at this crazy Russian kid climbing to the top of a building. He's literally doing pull-ups on the side of like 100-story building. That's cool. I'm glad you were able to do that. Please get down. Like I don't want to see you fall. But like at the same time, I'm watching this video, and the reason I'm watching it is that he might fall, and you'll see it. Like it's the is it the morbidity of it? Like is it the horror of watching something and you're not sure what's going to happen? Like what is the draw in watching something like that?
That's probably what has people watching race cars go around a track 500 times in a row.
Yeah. I mean, it's eventually someone's going to crash. Well, you watched another movie.
I did. I also watched Bad Times at the El Royale. I'm
interested in hearing about this.
Yeah, longtime listeners of the show heard me a handful of times back when this was one of those previews I was seeing over and over again. Shout out to Breakthrough. This was one of those, except this was one I actually was interested in seeing, and I never got around to it. And I'm glad I got around to it last night. So the plot of this movie is that there's this strange hotel and it's actually a motel. It's got doors that open right out into the world. So I don't know why they keep calling it a hotel, but it's got one half of the hotel is in Nevada and one half of the hotel is in California. And you see at the introduction to the movie, you don't really know why or who it is that's putting this there, but you see someone put a package that probably includes something of wealth under the floorboards of one of the rooms at this place. And then you fast forward some, I don't know if it's an identified amount of time, so I'll just say some amount of time. And then you see a collection of different people showing up at this hotel. And the hotel otherwise is pretty empty. It's not a busy place. It's sort of like it's lost its casino license, or gambling license. So people aren't coming there anymore to do the gambling. And so I've never seen The Hateful Eight, but I feel like it's got a bit of a Hateful Eight feel to it. And the movie itself all over the place has sort of a Quentin Tarantino light kind of feel to it.
Okay.
So you're seeing characters show up and not really knowing why they're there necessarily. And going, okay, how are these people going to interact with each other? What's this person's motive? What's this person's real story? They're good performances across the board. Even the girl from Dakota Johnson, the girl from 50 Shades of Grey and Suspiria, she's fine in it. I, for the longest time, thought Chris Pine was in this movie for some reason. He's not.
He not?
No.
He's not? He's not the shirtless guy with like his hands out?
No, that's Chris Hemsworth. So,
Thor?
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth is in this movie.
Oh, I thought it was Chris. Wow.
And I'll tell you this much. Chris Hemsworth in this movie is disgusting. Like he just, like he's so smarmy. Like he does a really good job of it. So much so that like a few minutes into him showing up, I turned to Karina. I was like, he is making me feel gross. And she was like, yeah, me too. I'm not happy with this. And I will say this much. The plot that includes him, like that section of this movie, is not great. It doesn't really fit with the tone of the rest of the movie. Some of the plots that get opened up close kind of what feels like prematurely. And it's are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got some really weird sound popped up. Anyway. So some of the plot lines kind of end a little too early. There are one or two that are waiting kind of to the end to go like, here's what this is, or here's who this person is.
Yeah.
And some of that's a little underwhelming. There's kind of an ex machina sort of element that pops up towards the end. But overall, this movie is interesting. It's definitely entertaining. It does kind of have you on edge a bit, going like, oh, like what with in terms of like the what's going to happen here kind of feel. There's a tension. And all in all, I'd say like it feels like if a good Quentin Tarantino movie were going to be made by Netflix, this is what it would feel like.
Okay.
So I'm kind of glad I didn't go to the theater to see it. I mean, I don't know if glad's the right word, but I don't care that I wasn't. I'll put it that way. But it's definitely worth checking out.
Okay.
So yeah, total recommend on that one. It's not. It's far from perfect. It's probably like a B plus, but definitely entertaining. And I have no problem recommending it at all, especially to you. I think you'll enjoy it.
Oh man, I can't believe that's not Chris Pine.
Yeah, I know. I was confused too. I was like, oh, Chris Hemsworth is also in this. And then about like an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, I'm like, wait a minute, where's Chris Pine? And I looked it up and I'm like, oh, he's just not in this movie. Never mind.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then that brings us to the moment on the show where we edit our movie ranking list for 2019. And you saw a lot of movies this week, Matt.
I did.
Where are we going to start?
All right. So I will go from top to bottom here.
Okay.
And I struggled with The Nice Guys. I couldn't decide whether or not to put it above or below Fellowship of the Ring.
Wow, that high.
Yeah. Ultimately, I decided to put it below Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay.
And just above Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Actually, pretty solidly above Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but just below Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay. And how many stars would you give that movie?
I would give The Nice Guys, out of 5, I'd give it 4.5 stars.
4.5 stars. All right. And I'm guessing that's a total recommend.
Absolutely.
And then what was the next movie?
The next one's Bad Times at the El Royale.
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm going to put that in between Bumblebee and Pumpkinhead.
Okay.
I'd like to put it a little higher, but it just the flaws are visible. So
okay, and how many stars would you give it?
I think let's give it 3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah. And
you already said it's a recommend.
True.
Yeah,
thumbs
I'll
up.
hit the yes button for that. What's next?
Next is going to be Rosemary's Baby.
Okay.
And that is going to go just a couple slots down underneath As Above, So Below. So it's below, so below.
Better than Creep, but below, so below.
Yeah. And then right below, so Rosemary's Baby gets, I'll give Rosemary's Baby 3 stars and a thumbs up.
Okay. 3 stars and a yes.
And then right underneath it, I'm going to put Assassination Nation.
Okay.
And I'm also going to give that 3 stars and a thumbs up.
I'm all jacked up with my autocorrect here.
Well,
I don't know how to
assassination
spell
is a different word or difficult word. It's like ass and then in a tie on.
All right. You're going to have to repeat yourself. How many stars?
I said ass. No, I'm going to give that one 3 stars and a thumbs up.
3 stars and a thumbs up. Okay. And then you had another one, right?
Oh, yeah. We still got to place Suspiria.
Oh, okay. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Well, I had to give this one some thought, too, because there are a lot of things competing for the bottom of my list. And at first, I thought it was going to go right above Aquaman.
Whoa.
But I remembered how mad I was that the possession of Hannah Grace was a thing.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, you know what? No, I'm not mad that Suspiria exists. It probably thinks it's better than it is. Or who knows? Maybe I just don't understand or appreciate it. But either way, it's not going much higher than that. And so I honestly, I did have it above Trilogy of Terror, but I'm going to move it. It's going below Trilogy of Terror.
Into the 48 spot.
If that's what that is.
Yep.
All right.
Let's see.
Oh, so I've hit 50 movies now.
And how many stars?
All right. Now the lowest I can go is half a star, right?
Correct.
All right. So I'm going to take Suspiria. Let me just check on something. I definitely gave Aquaman half a star then, right?
We weren't doing stars then.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
But,
All right.
but if you go and find our review for it, it does have half a star.
Oh, good. That's what it deserves. I mean, if you could give 0, that'd be great too. But so I'm going to give Suspiria 1 star.
1 star. Okay.
Yeah, it gets more than half a star because there were moments where I was curious as to what was going on. I'd say for the first 5 acts, I was ready for it to end in an interesting way and possibly say, hey, this is a decent movie. Like, check it out. And then no. That didn't happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's a no.
Yeah, that's a thumbs down on that one.
Okay, great. So, yep, you just hit 50 movies. Congratulations. Your tote bag is in the mail.
Cool.
And then as for me, I will also go from top to bottom. I'm going to put Free Solo in between Predator and Battleship Potemkin in the new number 9 spot. I'm going to give it 4 stars and a total recommend. I definitely liked it. Then the other movie that I watched is The Chipmunk Adventure, and that's dropping all the way down almost into the animation area of my list. Yeah, it's like in between. I have 2 separate animation areas apparently that I didn't realize, and it's going right in the middle of them, in between into the number 30 spot, in between In the Mouth of Madness and Peter Rabbit. I'm going to give it 2.5 stars, and it's a total recommend. It's a great time capsule of a movie, especially if you saw it as a kid. It was pretty fun.
I'm struggling on with the placement you have for that, but it is your list, man. So more power to you.
Also, a little fun fact: Nancy Cartwright is the voice of the Arabian Prince in the movie, and Nancy Cartwright is the voice of Bart Simpson. So, like 2 years after this movie made, and in fact, maybe I don't know when those Tracy Ullman shorts started on the Tracy Ullman show, the Simpson shorts. She may have already been the voice of Bart Simpson when this movie came out, which is crazy how long The Simpsons has been on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
should probably stop.
Oh, and then I wanted to bring up a new corner of the show, stuff I forgot to mention last week corner. And this is going to be very cryptic because I don't have the exact moment, but in the Lego Movie 2, and maybe you remember this and you can help me remember, in the Lego Movie 2, is there a moment where Batman is like, someone's really upset and Batman is like, you need to start listening to Elliott Smith music?
Yes.
Yeah, that killed me. That killed me. And I meant to mention that last week. So that's...
I wouldn't have been able to tell you that it was Batman that said it, but that's definitely a joke in that movie.
Yeah. And so that's stuff I meant to mention last week corner. Matt.
It's a brief corner.
Yeah, it was a quick corner this week. Anything to plug?
I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. If you haven't checked out Red Handed, check it out. Okay.
And I want to tell you to check out thisweekinfilm.com. If you have any questions about the show or want to get involved with us, you can find us and all of our...
Wait, sorry to interrupt the wrap up here. There is another podcast I would like to throw out there.
Okay, sure.
It's called It Could Happen Here, which is about the potential for there being a contemporary American Civil War. And it is terrifying, but really interesting. It's sort of a like a fictional kind of serial of like, here's how the next Civil War broke out, and kind of addresses it sort of as if it's happening or as if it's already happened. But it jumps back and forth between the guy who's narrating, talking about his research and things that have actually happened, and how that might play out in this possible future that we could be living in quite soon.
Okay.
And for some people already have been, if they've been run over by cars on the street just for being liberal or... Well, let's face it, I don't think anyone's run over anyone who's not, so...
What's the name of the show again?
It Could Happen Here.
It Could Happen Here. Okay. And then I was saying go to the website. If you haven't, maybe you could write us a review on iTunes or wherever you get the show. It helps us out a lot somehow. I don't know how, but it would help the show out a lot. And if you like the show, help the show. And I guess if that's the end of the reel, we'll see you next week in film.
Thanks for listening.